The gunshot that killed Willow Greene's husband was meant for her, and everyone in Dodge City, Kansas, knew it. She stood at the bar of the Silver Spur Saloon on a blistering July afternoon in 1878, pouring whiskey for cowhands who looked through her like she was already a ghost. The bullet had found Thomas Greene 3 months ago in an alley behind this very building. Payment for debts Willow had run up with the wrong people back in St. Louis. She had been a different woman then, desperate and foolish, tangled up with a gambling ring that didn't forgive and didn't forget. Thomas had been a good man who loved her despite everything, who married her even after she confessed the darkness trailing behind her like smoke. He had promised her a fresh start in Kansas, but the past had longer legs than either of them imagined. Now she worked 16-hour days to pay off what Thomas had tried to settle with his life, serving drinks to men who whispered about her when they thought she couldn't hear. The saloon owner, a thick-necked man named Garrison, took most of her wages as protection money, claiming he was keeping her safe from the same people who had killed her husband. Willow knew it was a lie, but she had nowhere else to go and no one to turn to. Her parents had died of cholera when she was 15. She had no siblings, no family, just a past that sat on her chest like a stone and a future that looked darker than a moonless prairie night. She was wiping down the bar when the cowboy walked in, and something about him made her hands still on the wood. He was tall and lean, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that needed cutting. His eyes were an unusual shade of amber, warm and direct, and when they landed on her, they didn't slide away like everyone else's did. He wore dusty trail clothes and a black Stetson that he removed as he approached the bar, revealing a face that was more interesting than handsome, all sharp angles and quiet strength. "Whiskey," he said, and his voice was low and rough, like gravel under wagon wheels. Willow poured without meeting his eyes, but she could feel him watching her. Not the way most men did, with calculation or contempt, but with something that felt almost like curiosity. She set the glass in front of him and named her price. He paid without haggling, then said, "You are Willow Greene." It wasn't a question. She looked at him sharply, her heart beginning to hammer. "Who is asking?" "My name is Xander Kane. I am a horse breeder passing through on my way to Colorado. I heard about what happened to your husband." He took a sip of whiskey, watching her over the rim of the glass. "I heard it wasn't his debt that got him killed." Willow's throat tightened. "Then you heard right. But hearing about it and doing anything about it are two different things, and I learned a long time ago that nobody does the second one." "Maybe you have been talking to the wrong people," Xander said. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mr. Kane, I appreciate whatever this is, but I do not need a white knight. I need to keep my head down and work off what I owe, and then maybe, if I am lucky, I can disappear somewhere they will never find me. A woman with my past does not get happy endings." "Who told you that?" Xander asked, and the gentleness in his voice almost undid her. "Life," Willow said flatly. "Experience. Reality. Take your pick." He was quiet for a moment, turning the glass in his hands. Then he said, "What if someone wrote you a new story, started from scratch, no past, just what comes next?" "That is not how the world works," Willow said, but something in her chest pulled tight, like a rope someone had just tugged. "Maybe not," Xander agreed, "but it is how I work." He finished his whiskey and stood, settling his hat back on his head. "I will be at the livery stable if you change your mind. I am leaving for Colorado in 3 days. You could come with me, start over where nobody knows your name or your history." Willow stared at him. "You do not even know me. Why would you do that?" Xander's amber eyes held hers, steady and sure. "Because I have been where you are, running from things I could not change, believing I did not deserve better. Someone gave me a chance once. I am just passing it forward." He tipped his hat. 3 days, Miss Greene, think about it. He walked out into the brutal Kansas sunshine, leaving Willow standing behind the bar with her heart beating so hard she thought it might crack right through her ribs. That night, she lay in her narrow bed above the saloon and stared at the ceiling, thinking about what he had said. A new story. It sounded like a fairy tale, something for children who still believed in magic. But the truth was, she was dying here. Slowly maybe, but surely. Garrison's protection money kept climbing. The debt never seemed to shrink no matter how much she paid. And every time the saloon doors swung open, she flinched, wondering if today was the day someone came to finish what they had started with Thomas. She thought about Xander Kane's face, the way he had looked at her like she was a person worth saving. No one had looked at her like that in so long she had almost forgotten what it felt like. The next morning she asked around about him. The stable master said Xander had 6 horses, all beautiful, all well-trained. He had papers proving he bought and sold horses legally, and he was headed to a ranch outside of Denver that had already paid him half up front for the delivery. He was legitimate, not some drifter with empty promises and bad intentions. Willow told herself she was foolish for even considering it. She told herself it was dangerous to trust a stranger. She told herself all the sensible things, and then she went to the livery stable at sunset, when the Kansas sky was burning orange and gold. Xander was brushing down a chestnut mare, his movements easy and practiced. He looked up when she approached, and something in his expression shifted, became hopeful in a way that made her realize he had actually meant what he said. He really was offering her a way out. "I have nothing," Willow said without preamble. "No money, no possessions except the clothes I am wearing and one other dress. I cannot pay you back. I cannot offer you anything." "I did not ask you to," Xander said. He set down the brush and walked over to her, stopping a respectful distance away. "I am not asking for anything except a traveling companion. The trail to Colorado is safer with 2 people and the horses do not talk much." Despite everything, Willow felt her mouth twitch. "What happens when we get to Colorado?" "I deliver the horses, collect my payment, and head to my ranch near Alta, Utah. It is small, but it is mine. I breed and train horses, sell them to ranches and the cavalry. It is honest work and it is enough." He paused. "You could come with me if you want. I could use help with the horses. Or you could stay in Denver, start fresh there. Your choice." "Why are you doing this?" Willow asked, and her voice cracked on the question. "Really? Tell me the truth." Xander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, 5 years ago I was in a Texas prison for something I did not do. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong face. I was going to hang. A lawyer traveling through town heard about my case, thought something did not add up. He dug into it, found the real man who committed the crime, got me released. He did not want money or thanks. He just said that justice mattered, and that everyone deserved someone in their corner. Xander's amber eyes were steady on hers. "You deserve someone in your corner, Willow, even if you do not believe it yet." Tears burned in Willow's eyes, and she blinked them back fiercely. She had cried enough in the past 3 months to last a lifetime. "Garrison will not let me leave. He will come after me." "Let him try," Xander said, and there was something hard in his voice, something that reminded Willow he was not just a kind man with gentle hands. He was a survivor too, someone who knew how to fight when fighting was needed. "We leave before dawn tomorrow. Pack what you can carry. I will handle the rest." Willow wanted to argue, to point out all the ways this could go wrong, but the truth was she was so tired of being afraid. So tired of living like she was already dead. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I will be here." Xander's face broke into a smile, and it transformed him, made him look younger and less guarded. "Good. Get some rest, Willow. Tomorrow we start writing that new story. She went back to the saloon and packed her meager belongings in the dark, her hands shaking. She left no note, told no one. At 4 in the morning, she slipped down the back stairs and through the silent streets of Dodge City, her heart pounding in her throat. Xander was waiting with the horses, exactly as he had promised. He helped her up onto a gentle gray mare without a word, and they rode out of town as the first pale light touched the eastern horizon. Willow did not look back. The trail to Colorado was long and hard, cutting through the dry Kansas plains and up into the Rocky foothills. They rode from dawn until dusk, stopping only to rest the horses and eat sparse meals of jerky and hardtack. Xander was good company, talking when she wanted conversation and staying quiet when she needed silence. He told her about his ranch in Utah, about the mountains that turned purple at sunset and the cold streams full of trout. He told her about the horses he bred, how each one had its own personality, its own quirks and charms. Willow found herself talking too, carefully at first, then more freely. She told him about growing up in St. Louis, about losing her parents and making bad choices out of desperation. She told him about Thomas, how kind he had been, how guilty she felt that loving her had gotten him killed. "It was not your fault," Xander said firmly one night as they sat by a small campfire, watching the stars wheel overhead. "The men who killed him made that choice. You did not pull the trigger. But they were looking for me," Willow said, her voice thick. "If I had never existed, Thomas would still be alive. And if Thomas had never met you, he would not have known what it was like to love someone with his whole heart," Xander said. "I did not know the man, but I am guessing he thought you were worth it." Willow closed her eyes against the tears. "He did. He told me that, even at the end. I just wish I could have given him more time, a better life." "You gave him love," Xander said quietly. "That matters more than time." They reached Denver on a warm August afternoon, the city sprawling and noisy after weeks on the trail. Xander delivered his horses to the ranch as promised, and the owner paid him in gold coins that clinked heavy in his saddlebags. They stayed the night in a modest boarding house, Willow in one room and Xander in another, everything proper and respectful. The next morning over breakfast, Xander said, "You could stay here, you know. Denver is big enough you could disappear, find work, make a life." Willow looked at him across the table, at his sun-weathered face and steady eyes, and realized she did not want to disappear into Denver's crowded streets. She wanted to see the ranch he talked about, the mountains and streams and open sky. She wanted to keep listening to his low voice tell stories by the campfire. She wanted to know what it felt like to stop running and start living. "I want to see Utah," she said, "if the offer is still open." Xander's smile was like sunrise. "It is always open." They left Denver the next day and headed northwest, climbing higher into the mountains. The air grew thinner and cooler, scented with pine and wildflowers. They followed narrow trails through forests so thick the sunlight came in golden shafts, and crossed high meadows where elk grazed in the early morning mist. Willow had never seen anything so beautiful in her life. The ranch was tucked into a valley near Alta, Utah, surrounded by mountains that seemed to touch the clouds. It was small like Xander had said, just a sturdy log cabin, a barn and several corrals. But it was neat and well kept, the kind of place that spoke of pride and hard work. A dozen horses grazed in the pastures, their coats gleaming in the September sunshine. "Welcome home," Xander said as they rode up, and Willow's throat tightened because it sounded like he meant her home too. She threw herself into the work with a desperation that surprised her. She helped Xander feed and groom the horses, mend fences, clean stalls. She learned which horses were skittish and which were gentle, how to approach them without spooking them, how to read their moods in the flick of an ear or the swish of a tail. Xander was a patient teacher, never frustrated when she made mistakes, always ready with quiet encouragement. The cabin had 2 rooms, a main living space with a kitchen and fireplace, and a smaller bedroom. Xander insisted Willow take the bedroom, said he was used to sleeping on a bedroll by the fire. She argued, but he was stubborn in his quiet way, and eventually she gave in. At night, she lay in the narrow bed and listened to the wind whisper through the pines, feeling safer than she had in years. As the weeks passed, she found herself watching Xander more than she should. The way his hands moved when he worked with the horses, gentle but firm. The way he smiled at her over morning coffee, slow and warm like honey. The way he listened when she talked, really listened, like every word mattered. She tried to tell herself it was gratitude, nothing more. He had saved her, given her a new start. Of course she felt something for him. But late at night, alone in the dark, she admitted the truth. She was falling in love with Xander Kane, and it terrified her. One evening in early October, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson, Xander said, "You have been quiet today. Something on your mind." Willow wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warmth still radiating from the day. "I have been thinking about what you said back in Dodge City, about writing a new story." "What about it?" Xander asked. "I do not know if I know how," Willow admitted. "I have spent so long running from the past. I do not know how to stand still and just be. And I do not know if I deserve this peace, this place. You." Xander turned to look at her, his amber eyes catching the last light. "Willow, you have been working yourself to the bone for 2 months trying to earn something you already have. You do not need to prove anything to me. You are enough exactly as you are." "But I come with so much damage," Willow said, her voice breaking. "I am a widow. I have debts and a past that could still catch up with us. I bring nothing but trouble." "You bring yourself," Xander said simply. "That is all I want." Willow looked at him, and suddenly the words were spilling out before she could stop them. "I am falling in love with you, and it scares me to death because everyone I have ever loved has gotten hurt. My parents died. Thomas died because of me. What if something happens to you?" Xander reached over and took her hand, his palm warm and calloused against hers. "Willow, people die. That is the hard truth. But they die whether we love them or not, and I would rather have 1 year loving you than 100 years playing it safe." "You love me," Willow whispered, afraid to believe it. "I have loved you since you walked into that livery stable in Dodge City," Xander said. "Maybe before, the moment I saw you in that saloon and watched you face down a room full of men like you were not afraid of anything. You are the bravest person I know, Willow Greene. You just do not see it yet." Willow closed her eyes, letting the tears come. "I do not want to be brave anymore. I just want to be happy." "Then be happy," Xander said, and he stood up and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her. "Stay here with me. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life showing you what happiness looks like." Willow pulled back to look at him, her heart pounding. "You want to marry me, more than I have ever wanted anything," Xander said, and the honesty in his voice left no room for doubt. "Yes," Willow said, the word coming out choked but certain. "Yes, I will marry you." Xander kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious. Willow melted into him, feeling the last walls around her heart crack and crumble. This was what it felt like to be loved without conditions, without fear. This was what it felt like to come home. They were married 3 weeks later by a traveling preacher who came through Alta. It was a simple ceremony in the cabin with just the 2 of them and the preacher's wife as a witness, but it was perfect. Willow wore a new blue dress Xander had surprised her with, and he wore his Sunday best, his dark hair neatly combed. When he slipped a simple gold band on her finger, Willow felt something shift inside her, a heaviness lifting. That night, they lay together in the bedroom that was now truly theirs, Xander's arms wrapped around her as the fire crackled in the other room. "I love you," Willow whispered into the darkness. "I know I do not say it enough, but I do, so much it hurts." "I know," Xander said, pressing a kiss to her hair. "And I love you, every single part of you, even the parts you think are broken." "You really did write me a new story," Willow said, wonder in her voice. "I did not think that was possible." "We wrote it together," Xander corrected gently. "You had to choose to turn the page, Willow. You had to decide you were worth saving. I just held the door open." Winter came early that year, sweeping down from the mountains with snow and bitter cold. But the cabin was warm and snug, and Willow found she did not mind being snowed in with Xander and the horses. They spent the long evenings by the fire, reading books Xander had collected over the years, playing cards, talking about their plans for the ranch come spring. Xander taught her to play the harmonica, laughing when she fumbled the notes. She taught him to make her mother's stew recipe, the one thing she remembered clearly from before her parents died. They made love in the firelight, learning each other's bodies with patience and tenderness, and Willow discovered that intimacy did not have to be rushed or transactional. With Xander, it was an expression of something deeper, a conversation without words. In January, a man rode up to the ranch on a cold afternoon, his horse steaming in the frozen air. Willow saw him coming and felt her heart seize with terror. Had they found her? Was this someone from her past, come to collect? But Xander went out to meet him calmly, and after a few minutes of conversation, came back inside with good news. The man was a horse buyer from Salt Lake City, looking for quality mounts for his freight company. He had heard about Xander's horses and wanted to do business. It was the first of many such visits. Word was spreading that the ranch near Alta had the best horses in the territory, and Xander's reputation was growing. With the extra income, they were able to expand the ranch, adding more corrals and buying a few more breeding mares. Willow discovered she had a talent for training young horses, a patience and intuition that surprised even her. The animals responded to her gentle hands, her calm voice. Spring came with a rush of meltwater and wildflowers, and Willow realized she had gone months without thinking about her past. The fear that had lived in her chest for so long had faded to something distant, a bad dream that could not touch her anymore. One morning in April, she woke up feeling sick and could not keep breakfast down. Xander watched her with worried eyes until she finally met his gaze and said, "I think I might be pregnant." His face went through a dozen expressions in as many seconds before landing on pure joy. "Really?" "I think so," Willow said, pressing a hand to her still flat stomach. "I am late, and I have been feeling strange. We should find a doctor to be sure." They rode into Alta the next day and found the local doctor, a kindly older man who confirmed what Willow already knew. She was about 2 months along, due sometime in early November. Xander held her hand the entire ride back to the ranch, grinning like a fool. "Are you happy?" Willow asked him, still trying to process the news herself. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Xander said. He pulled her close, right there on horseback, and kissed her thoroughly. "You are giving me everything I ever wanted, Willow. A home, a family, a reason to wake up smiling every morning." "I am scared," Willow admitted. "What if I am a terrible mother? What if something goes wrong?" "Then we will figure it out together," Xander said firmly. "But I have seen you with the horses, how gentle and patient you are. You are going to be an amazing mother." The pregnancy was not easy. Willow was sick for the first 3 months, barely able to keep anything down. But Xander was endlessly patient, bringing her weak tea and dry toast, rubbing her back when she was ill. never complaining. As summer came and her belly grew, he took over more of the heavy ranch work, insisting she rest. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," Willow protested one afternoon when he tried to take a water bucket from her hands. "I know," Xander said with that slow smile that still made her heart flip, "but humor me. I like taking care of you." "You have been taking care of me since the day we met," Willow said softly. "When do I get to take care of you?" "You do," Xander said, touching her face with gentle fingers. "Every single day. You have no idea what it means to me having you here, knowing you are mine and I am yours. That is all I need." Their son was born on a cold November night with snow falling thick outside the windows. The doctor came from Alta, along with his wife who served as midwife, and after hours of labor that left Willow exhausted and shaking, Xander placed a small, squalling bundle in her arms. "A boy," he said, and his voice was hoarse with emotion. "A healthy boy." Willow looked down at the tiny red face, the dark hair plastered to his small skull, and felt something vast and overwhelming rise in her chest. "Hello," she whispered. "Hello, little one." They named him James, after Xander's father who had died when Xander was young. Jamie for short. He had his father's amber eyes and his mother's stubborn chin, and from the moment he entered the world, he had both of them wrapped completely around his tiny fingers. Those first months were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings, but Willow had never been happier. Xander was a natural father, patient and gentle with Jamie, walking the floor with him at night when he fussed, singing to him in a low, rumbling voice that made the baby settle. "You are good at this," Willow said one night, watching Xander rock Jamie by the fire. "So are you," Xander said, smiling at her. "Look at us, writing our story one day at a time." As Jamie grew from infant to toddler, the ranch continued to thrive. They hired on a young man named Peter to help with the horses, a quiet fellow who was good with his hands and asked no questions about their past. Willow was grateful for the help, especially as she found herself pregnant again when Jamie was just over a year old. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and in the summer of 1881 they welcomed a daughter. She was small and perfect, with downy blonde hair and blue eyes that Xander swore came from Willow's side of the family. They named her Sarah, and Jamie was fascinated by his baby sister, always wanting to hold her and help take care of her. Life settled into a rhythm that felt solid and real. Xander's reputation as a horse breeder continued to grow, and they were able to build a larger house, one with proper bedrooms for the children and a big kitchen where Willow could cook. They hired a woman from town to help with the housework a few days a week, giving Willow more time to work with the horses, which she loved. The years passed in a sweet blur. Jamie grew tall and strong, following his father everywhere, learning the family trade. Sarah was bright and curious, always asking questions, always getting into things. When she was 3, Willow found herself pregnant once more, and this time they had another boy whom they named Thomas, after Willow's first husband. Xander had suggested the name, and Willow had cried when he did. "Are you sure?" she had asked. "He was my past." "He was a good man who loved you," Xander had said. "That makes him worth remembering. Besides, you do not have a past anymore, Willow. You have a life. And part of that life includes the people who helped make you who you are." Thomas Kane was a happy, easy baby who rarely cried and smiled at everyone. With 3 children, the house was chaos and noise and laughter. Everything Willow had never dared to dream she could have. One evening, when Jamie was 7 and Sarah was 5 and little Thomas was toddling around the house getting into everything, Willow stood on the porch and looked out at the ranch. The mountains were purple in the fading light, the horses peacefully grazing in the pastures. She could hear Xander inside, laughing at something Jamie had said, and Sarah singing a nonsense song to her baby brother. She thought about the woman she had been in Dodge City, the one who believed she did not deserve happiness, who thought her story was already written and the ending was dark. That woman seemed like someone from another lifetime, someone she barely recognized. Xander came out to join her, slipping an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far we have come," Willow said, leaning into him. "How different everything is. Do you miss it?" Xander asked. "Your old life?" "Not for a single second," Willow said fiercely. "This is my life. You, the children, this place. This is everything I never knew I wanted." "I am glad you said yes that day in Denver," Xander said quietly. "I am glad you decided to keep writing the story with me." "You told me once that I was brave," Willow said. "But you are the brave one, Xander. You took a chance on a broken woman with nothing to offer." "You were never broken," Xander said, turning her to face him. "You were just told that you were, and you did have something to offer. Yourself. That was always enough." Willow kissed him, pouring years of gratitude and love into it. When they pulled apart, she said, "Thank you for seeing me when no one else could. Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never," Xander said, his amber eyes steady and sure. "I will never give up on you, Willow Kane. You are stuck with me for life." "Good," Willow said, smiling through happy tears, "because I am not going anywhere." As the years continued to pass, the ranch became one of the most respected in Utah. Buyers came from as far as California and Montana to purchase horses from the Kane Ranch, knowing they would get quality animals and fair dealing. Jamie grew into a fine young man, taking over more and more of the day-to-day operations as Xander's hair turned gray at the temples. Sarah became a skilled rider, able to gentle even the most skittish horses. Thomas, true to his namesake's kind nature, was everyone's favorite, always ready with a joke or a helping hand. When Jamie turned 20, he married a girl from Alta named Elizabeth, and they built a small house on the ranch property. Within a year, they had given Xander and Willow their first grandchild, a boy they named Xander James. Holding her grandson for the first time, Willow marveled at how full her life had become, how rich with love and family. Sarah married at 19, a young rancher from the next valley over, and though Willow cried when she moved away, she was happy knowing her daughter had found good love. Thomas showed no signs of settling down, too busy working with the horses and traveling to horse auctions and fairs, but he was happy, and that was all that mattered. On a warm summer evening in 1895, Willow and Xander sat on the porch of their home, watching the sunset just as they had done countless times before. They were in their 40s now, with lines around their eyes and gray threading through their hair, but to Willow, Xander was still the man who had walked into that saloon in Dodge City and offered her hope when she had none. "You ever think about that day?" Willow asked, knowing he would understand what she meant. "Every day," Xander said, reaching for her hand. "I think about how close I came to just riding through Dodge City without stopping, how different everything would be if I had." "The universe knew what it was doing," Willow said with a smile, "bringing us together." "You really believe that?" Xander asked. "I do," Willow said. "I think we were always meant to find each other. All the hard parts, all the pain, it led me to that saloon and you to that bar. And everything after has been the good part of the story." "The best part," Xander agreed. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You know, back then you said a woman with your past did not get happy endings." "I remember," Willow said. "Were you wrong?" Xander asked, his amber eyes warm with affection and a hint of teasing. Willow laughed, the sound free and joyful. "Completely wrong. Turns out when the right person comes along and offers to write a new story from scratch, anything is possible." "I love you, Willow Kane," Xander said. Then, now, and always. I love you too, Willow said. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for letting me, Xander replied. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear overhead. The same stars that had watched over them during that long journey from Kansas to Colorado to Utah, during all the years of building a life together. Inside the house, they could hear Jamie's family settling in for the evening, the sound of their grandson's laughter drifting through the open windows. Willow thought about the scared woman she had been, the one who believed she was not worthy of love or happiness, who thought her story was already finished. She thought about Xander's words in that livery stable, about writing a new story from scratch, and realized that was exactly what they had done. They had taken blank pages and filled them with love and family and purpose, creating something beautiful from nothing. What are you smiling about? Xander asked, noticing her expression. Just thinking about our story, Willow said, how it is not finished yet, how there are still pages left to write. Many pages, Xander agreed. What do you want to put on them? More of this, Willow said simply. More days with you, watching our family grow, working with the horses, sitting on this porch and counting our blessings. That is all I need. That is all I need too, Xander said. As the night deepened around them, Willow felt a peace so complete it was almost overwhelming. She had spent so many years running, so many years believing she did not deserve good things, that happiness was for other people. But Xander had shown her differently. He had shown her that the past did not define the future, that everyone deserved a second chance, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. The ranch continued to prosper. More grandchildren came, filling the property with noise and energy. Jamie proved to be as skilled a horseman as his father, and together they expanded the operation, breeding some of the finest horses in the Western Territories. Sarah visited often with her growing family, and Thomas eventually married a widow from town, a kind woman with a daughter of her own, and they built their own small ranch nearby. As Willow entered her 50s, she slowed down a bit, content to let the younger generation take over the heavy work. She spent her time in the garden she had cultivated over the years, teaching her granddaughters to cook and sew, telling them stories about their grandfather and how he had saved her life with nothing more than kindness and belief. Was it really like that, Grandma? Her oldest granddaughter asked one day. Did Grandpa really just offer to take you away from everything? It really was, Willow said, smiling at the memory. I was at my lowest point, convinced I did not deserve anything good, and your grandfather walked in and told me I could have a new story. He changed my entire life with that one offer. That is so romantic, the girl sighed. It is, Willow agreed. But the real romance was not in the grand gesture. It was in all the little moments that came after. The way he held my hand when I was scared. The way he believed in me when I did not believe in myself. The way he loved me, every single day, even when I was difficult or sad or struggling. That is what real love looks like. Xander's health began to decline in his 60s, a slow wearing down that worried Willow but did not surprise her. They had both worked hard all their lives, and the years took their toll. But even as his body weakened, his spirit remained strong, and he still found joy in the ranch, in his family, in the life they had built together. One evening, sitting on their porch with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders, Xander said, I have no regrets, you know, nothing I would change. Neither do I, Willow said, holding his hand tightly. Even the hard parts, Xander asked. Especially the hard parts, Willow said. They made the good parts mean more. They made me appreciate what we have. Xander smiled, that slow, warm smile that still made her heart flutter after all these years. You became quite the philosopher, Willow Kane. I had a good teacher, Willow said, kissing his weathered cheek. Xander lived to see his 70th birthday, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, a legacy of love that stretched out like the mountains around their ranch. When he passed peacefully in his sleep one winter night, Willow grieved deeply, but without regret. They had been given 37 years together, 37 years of happiness neither of them had expected to find. She continued to live at the ranch, cared for by her children and grandchildren, still offering advice about the horses and the business. She watched the family grow and thrive, knowing that Xander's legacy lived on in every one of them, in their kindness and integrity and belief that everyone deserved a chance. On a summer evening 20 years after she had first arrived in Utah, Willow sat on the porch and looked out at the land she had come to love. The ranch was bigger now, more prosperous, but the heart of it remained the same. It was a place built on hope and second chances, on the belief that the past did not have to define the future. She thought about the woman she had been in Dodge City, serving whiskey with dead eyes and no hope. She thought about Xander walking into that saloon, seeing something in her that she could not see in herself. She thought about the journey they had made together, the life they had built, the love that had sustained them through everything. A woman with her past did not get happy endings, she had told him, but she had been wrong. She had gotten the happiest ending of all. A life filled with love, a family that spanned generations, memories sweet enough to last eternity. Xander had told her he would write her a new story from scratch, and he had kept that promise. They had written it together, page by page, day by day, year by year, and it had been beautiful. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Willow smiled. Somewhere, she knew Xander was smiling too, proud of the life they had created, the legacy they had left. Their story had started in darkness and desperation, but it had ended in light and love. That was all anyone could ask for. That was everything.